Let's go! The guys out west aren't showing Ed Orgeron the respect he deserves. They have LSU as an 8.5 win total team. My goodness gracious, LSU, with all the talent they're returning, is going to clearly hit this over, right? We'll see. So look, we're all LSU fans here. I want you, though, to come into this with an objective viewpoint, because there was one drastic shift that has happened in the SEC that has changed the way we should view college football schedules. So obviously, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let's get to it. Now, before we dive a little deeper into all these numbers, once again, this is not professional advice. So obviously, be cautious with your decisions, and you guys know the rest. So you see here, Alabama at 11.5. So the first question is, does this include postseason and bowl games? And the answer to that is no. So this is just the 12-game regular season. Alabama at 11.5. So if, Alabama hits the over, that means they went 12-0. So undefeated in the SEC for a second straight season. Take that for what it's worth. And you continue here. Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M are the only other schools that have a higher total than LSU. That does not mean Vegas views them as better teams. This is just how difficult your schedule actually is. And of course, LSU, because they play Florida every season as a cross-division rival, their West schedule is always tougher. The same thing kind of true for Auburn that has to play Georgia every season, okay? And Auburn's total is at 7. So if you want, there's actually been rumors that the schedule might be changing soon. And if you want to watch that, down below is a link. It's also flashing in the top right corner, which is kind of weird because there it is, flashing in the top right corner. It's kind of weird because we haven't talked about it as much, and it seems to be only one reporter has actually even reported that there could be a change to the schedule, but it seems to be a bigger deal that they're discussing that, and that would actually be a very good thing for LSU. And what I'm doing here is, this is the 2019 schedule, so the last time LSU played a full schedule. Now, once again, there's not going to be a whole lot of fancy edits in this video, just very laid back. You see here, first thing, 2 off weeks right here in 2019. I don't know why in college football there's not 2 bye weeks every season, but I digress. So you get the 2 off weeks here in 2019. This is a key thing about the 2019 team. They were so good, it didn't matter who was on their schedule. And normally in college football, there's going to be 1 or 2 teams where that team is that good, it doesn't matter. Obviously, 2019 LSU was the case, 2020 Alabama, and 2018 Clemson. Those teams are just so phenomenal, they were going to beat whoever was in front of them. But the thing is, the SEC, of course, in 2019 was not as strong. This is the big shift I'm talking about. In 2019, even though it didn't matter who LSU played or when they played them, they were going to win. It also did help that the SEC bottom half wasn't as good. So obviously, Derek Mason out at Vanderbilt. We're not playing them this season, but he was not good at Vanderbilt. But Florida has gotten better under Dan Mullen. But really, the teams that really took huge steps forward were Ole Miss, Arkansas, A&M, and Mississippi State. They are far better off with their coaching staffs than what they were before. Obviously, we were on the wrong end of a Mike Leach beatdown last season, even though their offense, as we turned out to know, wasn't all that great. But honestly, Arkansas and Ole Miss, even though we beat them, they are way better. Their coaching staffs are far more talented than they were with the prior regime, in particular Arkansas. So we tend to go back to 2019 where we went 15-0, but before the season even began, there were 4 SEC wins on the schedule that were penciled in. Vanderbilt, we weren't going to lose to Vanderbilt. We were not going to lose to Mississippi State with Garrett Schrader, a true freshman quarterback. We were not going to lose to Arkansas, who had an interim coach and a true freshman quarterback at the time. But even before the season, Chad Morris was absolutely awful. And the same thing is true with Ole Miss. But all of those programs got huge upgrades in coaching. Now, we don't know what's going to happen here with Auburn, but still, Auburn has, a top 15 recruiting class almost every season, and they're obviously still going to be tough every year. So, in 2019, there were 4 SEC teams, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt, that we could say with 1,000% certainty that LSU is going to beat those teams. That is no longer the case on this 2020 schedule. And obviously you're still looking at the 2020 schedule. So let's go through each and every one of these games and see which ones are just slam dunk wins. So McNeese, Central Michigan, and ULM, the non-Power 5s, cross our fingers, we win all those games, okay? So let's go through all the SEC games and see which ones are slam dunk wins. You might feel comfortable about Mississippi State, but they're no longer just terrible. You might feel comfortable about beating Kentucky, but they return statistically the best SEC running back in Chris Rodriguez, according to SEC StatCat, and they're well coached, and we're having to play them on the road. Obviously, Ole Miss with Matt Corral and Lane Kiffin the week after we're playing Dan Mullen, that's going to be a tough game. And, we have a bye week the next week, so that's going to be the 8th consecutive game that we play. Then you get Arkansas the week after playing Alabama. This is a really solid coaching staff. They returned all 3 of their coaches from last season. All 3 of them had great first seasons, and they had the best wide receiver in the SEC. And then, of course, Texas A&M, Alabama, Auburn, and the entire SEC is just going to be strong. And then you have UCLA. All the way out in Pasadena. UCLA plays a week before and against the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. So they're going to have a game in hand. Whether that's an advantage or not, we can have a discussion about that. But still, UCLA, this is the strongest UCLA team they're going to have under Chip Kelly. I don't know how good they're going to be, but they do return a lot of their talent, including their dual threat quarterback. Something else about the SEC schedule is that last season, LSU played a majority pocket quarterback schedule. That is drastically changing this season. UCLA dual threat quarterback. Auburn, Bo Nix lit us up on the ground. Same thing for Matt Corral, lit us up on the ground. Florida's going to have a dual threat quarterback next season. Alabama goes from pocket to dual threat. Now they may not be better, but they're going to be a dual threat quarterback. Arkansas is going to have a better runner at quarterback this season as well. So that's another thing that's going to be different. Does it help LSU? Does it hurt? I don't know, but it is going to be drastically different than what you played last season. So, we have 3 wins penciled in. But remember, if you want to get over 8.5, you need to get to 9. I just don't see a slam dunk for sure win like I did in 2019, where there was 4 of them in the SEC. Now, there are games that I feel comfortable about. I love Auburn. I think LSU is going to take care of Auburn pretty easily. They have never won in Tiger Stadium since the 1900s. The 1990s? Well, that would be the 1900s. Anyway, so Auburn, I feel pretty comfortable about. I would give it 75% certainty. 75% certainty here with Mississippi State. I also feel pretty good about UCLA at 75% certainty. Kentucky, I feel good about 75% certainty that they're going to win. So I'll put it at that for those games. So, 75% certainty. Let's say you win 3 out of those 4 games. That now gets you to what? That gets you to 6 wins. So if we need to get to 9, we got to win 3 more games, okay? So I feel comfortable LSU winning all of these first few games right here. So starting off 6-0, that's pretty daggum good. Now it gets a little tricky. I do feel comfortable about, even though it's a week after playing Alabama, this Arkansas team I think is going to be pretty solid. They returned a lot of their talent from last season. I think LSU is going to take care of business there. So we win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. Now, once again, we still have to get 2 more out of this schedule, okay? Now, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can LSU split these 2 games? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, it's up for debate. I think all 4 of those games are coin flips. Obviously, LSU has enough talent to beat that team, and the other team has enough talent to beat them, especially playing Ole Miss at Oxford the week after playing Dan Mullen. That is a tough strategic shift from a week-to-week basis. man, that's going to be tough. I think they'll split these games. I think LSU has a better shot of splitting these games than just winning. I think LSU has a better shot of winning this game than winning both of these, if that makes sense. If you play 50-50 games, you need things to go your way. You need a call to go your way. You need a shoe throw to go your way. So that's the scary thing. That's why I think 8.5 is a fair number. Now, will LSU have that luck next season? That's kind of hard to say. But once again, there are only, to me, I would bet my life, 3 surefire wins, and that's against the non-Power 5 teams. Win. So 6-0 right there, which is pretty nuts. Best case scenario, you're splitting these. So if you go 7-1 on that front half of the schedule, which by the way would be very difficult to do, I think LSU can certainly do it. That means you only have to win 2 of these, and if we know ULM is going to be a win, that puts you at 8. So now all you got to do is get 1 of these, and then you're at 9, right? But then again, that's if you go 7-1 on that first crop. And obviously, if LSU starts 6-0 and they can beat Auburn and UCLA and all those schools, you would think with the locker room being together, positive momentum, all those things, starting your season off great, especially now with player mobility and transfer portals and saving your body for the draft and opt-outs, it is going to be very critical to win all 6 of those games early on. So if that's the case and you can keep the roster intact and you only lose 1 of those games against Ole Miss and Florida, that means you are playing Alabama right here basically for a chance to go to the college football playoff. Honestly, that really is what that comes down to. Now, of course, you could lose against Arkansas or A&M, which obviously both of those games could get tricky. Of course, you beat ULM, but that's just, you got to remember these games aren't just games in and of themselves. Players have more options, and there's so many more factors than there was just even a few years ago. So it is going to be very fascinating. But once again, if you go 7-1, you in those first 8, and then you win this one against ULM, all you got to do is win 1 of these final 3. Obviously, a lot easier said than done, but that is where we are right now. Kind of interesting. It's not as easy to predict this without this guy as your QB, and it is good to see Joe back healthy out there throwing to Jamar at practice. Good stuff. But, this guy guaranteed that you won every game, and he was exceptional. 278 yards was the fewest amount of yards he threw in a single game. He was over 300 in 13 of the 15 games. I mean, we can talk about Burrow all we want, but, that guy's not walking through the door. And that's the thing. Everyone's level has to rise. And you could be the biggest Max or Miles fan. You're just not going to get that level of quarterback play maybe ever again. So we're going to need, with this full schedule, our coaching staff to be even better than what they were 2 seasons ago, which then, of course, leads us to Ed Orgeron. Coming off the 5-5 season, that's obviously unacceptable at a school like LSU. So what is the bare minimum amount of wins? It's funny because this is the number 1 response I've gotten on live streams. 8. That is the bare minimum amount. And you guys are talking about 8-5. You 8-5, 8-4. You'll be fine with 8-4, including, of course, the bowl game. That is the bare minimum amount of wins, which is interesting that Vegas has that thing at 8.5. If LSU in this next season is under 8 total wins, or if they get down to 7-6, that's when you got to start discussing the future of the program. I don't think LSU is going to get down to that level, but there is a standard that must be kept once you win 3 national championships since 2003. So, obviously, college football's random. You can get very unlucky and lose a lot of these coin flip games that we were referencing earlier, but that's the key. It's too unpredictable to say, well, we're going to go 12-0 or 11-1. With luck factored in, to me, bare minimum is an 8-4 season, and I'm standing by that. But you guys love quarterbacks, right? What is the number one stat that predicts quarterback success? That was our video from yesterday. You can watch it, boom, right here. And it is 100% correct since 2003. You know you want to watch it. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! Tacos tonight. Let's go.